Now, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland has been having a bit of a rough time of late. In September 2022, the Conservatives, the party of power for the last 15 years, had some sort of existential crisis and promptly imploded, spewing out PMs one after the other like some sort of horrific berserking Pez dispenser.
Get some! Yeah! Ha-ha! Get some, baby!
Special note of this batch has to be taken of the ultra-crepidarian Liz Truss, who at a whopping 44 days in office took the record for the shortest ever serving PM. A UK tabloid pitted her against a live-streamed lettuce to see of the two who would last the longer. She lost. She did her best to quickly destroy the economy in the time allotted her, and she got to briefly meet the Queen, who promptly died 2 days after. I hear that haunts her still. The lettuce, that is. The lettuce haunts her still. Now the party of power has switched. The UK is currently enjoying various ongoing housing, crime and immigration crises, but fear not, for at its helm is one of Britain's most popular and well-received leaders. Oh no, it's just Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer, who sounds like something you'd order in an Irish pub. A pint of Keir Starmer, you feckwit. Anyhow, all this is to say that the UK has been in a bit of turmoil, and so it was against this backdrop that in 2024, admittedly quite late to the party, I discovered the delight that is Clarkson's farm. Clarkson, formerly of Top Gear fame, that's the real Top Gear you know, the good one, had been sacked from the BBC in 2015 after punching one of his producers in the face when discovering, after a long day's shooting, that his evening catering had been forgotten about. Sacked from the BBC's most profitable show, and the BBC itself. Always a smart corporate move, BBC. Though I do understand they were put between a rock and a hard place. Clarkson instead hopped across to Amazon, and guess what? His Top Gear mates followed. Thus, the Grand Tour was formed. Now, Amazon is a company so big that movie and TV producing is a side hustle for them. Basically, its entertainment division is doing the corporate equivalent of playing in a bull pit. Puts it in perspective, doesn't it, Disney? I had been previously promised by a good number of people how excellent Clarkson's farm was, but I admit that though I did not disbelieve them outright, I did wonder quite how entertaining watching a sexagenarian Yorkshireman drive round the south of England in his tractor could be. The answer is extraordinarily entertaining. Clarkson's Farm quickly became one of my favourite TV shows, and he and the rest of the Clarkson Farm employees became beloved actors upon the stage of my evening's introversion. That means I watched them on TV. I understand this premise for a show may not sound like a fun ride, especially if you live outside the UK, but take my word on it, if you haven't virtually visited Diddley Squat, you really must give it a go. It will surprise you. Now certainly there are various ploys and ideas and tomfoolery enacted for the sake of good viewing entertainment, but at its heart Clarkson's Farm is a show about hard work, long hours, low pay, and love for the land, the animals, and the countryside on which they reside. Highlighting the difficulties faced by British farmers, and indeed farmers from all over the world, Jeremy Clarkson, and Clarkson's Farm, has been a showcase for the difficulties our food producers face in the forms of the weather, economy, disease, bureaucracy, and the general pettiness of the local council. The West Oxfordshire District Council, to be specific. The West Oxfordshire District Council, 3 Welsh Way, Witney, OX286JH, the United Kingdom. You can be told about someone's plight, but to actually see it, to see the internal workings of the machine, of everything that has to go into these labours, gives a far greater understanding of the subject matter than you would otherwise have had. And watching hard-working men and women brought to tears because of the grim realities of their situations is absolutely gut-wrenching. And so, when Prime Minister Ahara's IPA introduced an inheritance tax, a tax that would take 20% of anyone's estate upon their death, if their assets were worth more than 1 million, the farmers had had enough. Protests were enacted, pitchforks were couched, tractors driven in convoy. Descending upon central London, the country was brought to the city, and Clarkson himself, still recovering from a recent heart attack, was prominent amongst them. So it has become that this bluff, blunt-speaking Yorkshireman, who is loved and loathed by the English public in equal measure, has become a mouthpiece for all his farming kinfolk. The BBC, his former employer, certainly tried to give him a hostile interview on the streets, but Clarkson was having none of it, and it was no small satisfaction watching angled questions being unequivocally batted away. A farm's land might be worth more than $1 million, but their working wages may not be of equal value. Clarkson himself, in his first year of ploughing the fields, made a grand total of £114. And since 2019, pig farming costs have risen by 54%, cattle by 44%, and cereal by 43%. And it's set only to get worse. And if, upon the landowner's death, the inheritor cannot pay off this 20% fine, they are at risk of forfeiting their farm, their land, their animals, their house, their way of life. And who gets it? Well, of course the government does. Prime Minister Beamish Stout. And so I wish Jeremy Clarkson well and a full and speedy recovery. I wish there were more people like him, not afraid to speak their mind. I don't care if I agree with someone or not. I'm an adult, for God's sakes, not some maudlin child boy. I'm sure there'd be plenty I could find to disagree with Mr. Clarkson on. But after all, that's what free speech and freedom of expression are all about. That the very act of speaking out and saying what you think, no matter how unpopular it is your right to do so. And what a rare phenomenon that has become during this decade-long experiment of ultra-political correctness. It makes you think, doesn't it? So good luck to him, and all the farmers. Good luck to them all.